Hey there, tubers. Today's video is going to be on the 400-hour service on my 2022 Bobcat CT5555 tractor. This is a fairly lengthy service. It includes quite a bit of stuff. And I've got the book here to show what needs to be done. I've had some people in previous videos telling me that I've either done more than what the book says or not enough what the book says, so I got it out today to show you exactly what is included. So here is the 400-hour service. It says engine oil and filter, transmission fluid, transmission filter, and hydrostat filter, and front axle oil. So that doesn't seem too bad. The transmission fluid is going to be quite a bit. The book says it holds about 12 gallons, so that's going to take some time there. But one of the things I wanted to point out to some people that didn't know it is not only are you doing the 400-hour, but you're doing the 200-hour, the 100-hour, and then on the other side here is the 50-hour and the 10 hours. So basically what you're doing is everything that's divisible by the number of hours that you're on. So when it comes to the 600-hour, I won't have to do the 400-hour, but I will have to do the 200, the 100, the 50, and the 10. And that's kind of the way this one's set up. You know, it says every 200, every 100. So it's not just what's under the 400-hour category for today. So that includes a fuel filter and a lot of inspections. So we'll start off with the 400-hour stuff, and then we'll work our way down for the rest of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the front axle oil draining. It holds 7 quarts, and that's gear oil. And it's still below freezing right now, although the sun's out and the winds are calm, so it feels a lot warmer than it is. But it's going to take some time for that fluid to drain out. And on that, there is several drain ports. There's one right there. There'll be another one on the other side, and then there's one underneath for the differential. So you got a few spots that you're going to have to get some pans for. But like I said, it's going to take a bit because I'm sure this oil is fairly thick. I had this tractor running for a little bit, drove it around, but I'm sure it's still going to be pretty thick. So I'll get some pans under there. I'll show you the drain plugs as I pull them off, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I pulled this plug, 17mm socket will take that off, and then I popped the fill port here loose to get some air, and they started draining. As you can see, it's going very slow, so 7 quarts is going to take a while. Now there's another one right here, so I'll be draining that in a little bit. That one's definitely going to make a mess, so I'm going to let these drain first. Hopefully it'll get the level down, and maybe there won't be so much that comes out of those. But I was mistaken, there's not one on the differential there, so it's just these 4, 2 on each side, that'll drain it. I had to make myself my own catch basins because my pan, the lip, pushed it too far away from the wheel, so that wouldn't go in. So if you've got something really skinny that you can get in there, great. Otherwise you might have to do the same thing I did here. So we'll let this drain and go on to the next step. Alright, so while those are draining, I'm going to go ahead and start draining the engine oil. And on these tractors, the four-wheel drive driveline goes right between the pan. So there's 2 drains on these pans here. Again, a 17 millimeter will break those loose. So I'm going to break each one of them loose and get them finger tight there, and then I sample all my oil. So I'll be pulling a sample a little bit out of each side and having that sent in to get analyzed. So I'll get rolling on this and be right back. Okay, so I got those pulled. I got my sample taken. It's kind of a pain to sample out of each side. I don't know that it matters, but that's what I normally do. So one thing on this tractor that I didn't follow the book on is they call for your first engine oil change to be at 400 hours. Now this is my second CT5555, and the first one I sampled the oil at 200 hours, or it changed the oil at 200 hours, sent a sample in, and it came back with extremely high numbers on the metals in the oil. So that kind of told me that for the first oil change anyway, 400 hours is too long. So with this tractor, I decided, even though the book doesn't say it, I was changed the first oil at 50 hours. I sent that in, had it sampled, and those numbers came back really good. Sending this one in, we'll find out what 350 hours for a second oil change, what those numbers look like. I'll probably make a video when I get the results back. It takes a couple weeks. So we'll try and compare all that. So keep an eye out for that, and I'll put a link above if you're interested in the comparison between the 50 and 200 hour oil changes. So I'll let this thing drip for a bit here, and then we'll pull the engine oil filter off and do that. So it's a bit of a waiting game now between that and the front differential here. If I had more pans I could do more, but I'm kind of limited right now. So I'll see you in a little bit. Alright, a quick update here. So I got the plugs back in. Those torque to between 23 and 26 foot-pounds. So I shoot for 25. And then as for this front axle, it's still draining, but I made a bit of a mess because I kind of assumed when they said this thing only held 7 quarts that I'd only get 7-ish quarts back out of it. But this is a gallon container, and it was plumb full and overflowed. And then that one's a 2.5, and it's well over half full. So I've definitely got way more than 7 quarts that have come out. Now the dipstick showed right at full, so I'm not sure why we have the discrepancy in amounts. I guess we'll find out when I fill it up what the true amount that came out is, but just so you're aware, it's definitely more than 4 quarts per side. So I'll continue to let that drain, and we'll get working on the engine oil filter here. Be right back. Okay, so here's my table of goodies. All this stuff's going to get put in there eventually. So since I'm working on the engine oil filter right now, I thought I'd show you what the number was. It's a 7384298. And that's what'll be going on the engine of this 5555. So I'll get this loosened up over here and start draining. And unfortunately, this kind of makes a mess, and the breeze has picked up, so I'm guessing I'm gonna have oil dripping everywhere. I'll try and get my former funnel under there, but still not gonna solve all the problems with this. It's a messy process. Alright, so I got that off, and as you can tell, it's kind of in an awkward spot. You can't really get much under it, and then once you do, you've got to eventually take it out to put the new filter on. So it sits there and drips on these hydraulic lines and the frame. So here's the filter. I'm just going to spin it on, and then once I get it on and snug, I'll go another 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn, and she should be good to go. Just like so. And then I'll start filling this thing up with some oil. And I use Amsoil 1540 diesel oil. That's just what I like. Doesn't mean that's what the book calls for or what anybody else has to do, but I've had good luck with Amsoil, so I like to run it in everything. So I'll get that filled back up, and we'll go on to the next thing. I just wanted to show you where the engine oil fill port is. It's right here. Not sure if you can see that or not, but it's an awkward position. You just spin this cap off, but there's so much crap around it that you're definitely going to have a longer funnel to get in there. So I'll get that opened up. This thing holds just over 6 quarts. I think it's around 6.5 quarts of oil. So I'll get filling on that. All right, so I got that engine oil all topped up. We're good to go there. One thing I'll add is that this thing did use some oil in the 350 hours since the last oil change. The 2 notches full and add on the dipstick, I would assume is like any other typical engine, that it's about 1 quart. I have no reference for that on this. The book doesn't say anything, so like I said, I'm guessing it's 1 quart between full and add, and it was right in between them almost exactly. So with my assumption being 1 quart between the two, it used about 1/2 quart in 350 hours, which isn't too bad. I was hoping it'd be a little less, but we'll see how it goes on this next oil change. If it stays consistent, I'll live with that. If it starts using more, I guess I'll have to figure something else out. So with that, I'm going to come down here and put the plugs back in. It's been a couple hours and it's just barely dripping, so unless I want to sit out here all day, I'm guessing it's good enough. So I'll get the plugs put back in there, and the book does not have a torque spec on those, so I'm going to try 15 foot-pounds first, see how that feels. If it feels all right, I might go up to 20. I'm probably not going to go much higher than that because there's just not a lot of meat there. So I'll get those put back in, and I did pull the plug out up top here. Nothing came out of it, and strangely enough, the book doesn't even show that they exist. So as best I can guess is that they're in case you over service this. Instead of having to pull this lower plug, you could probably pull that upper one and get the level right there. Now that thing does have a dipstick, so that's how we'll fill it to, but that's as best as I can guess what those upper plugs are for. So I'll get these plugs back in and start filling this up and see just how much oil we got out of it. And then I'll also try and show you as I dump this oil into a bigger bucket what it looks like. When I did dump this one out when it filled up, there's a lot of metallic material in there, way more than I expected. So we'll see how that other side shows up, and hopefully the camera will be able to catch that, but I'll try and show that to you. So this is a 2.5 gallon jug, and it is pretty dang full for being 2.5 gallons. Plus this was a gallon on the other side, and it filled up, overran, and then filled up some more again. So that tells me that there is something going on here. I don't know what. It doesn't look milky enough that there was moisture in it. So right now I'm kind of speculating that the book is wrong on how much the front axle holds. I don't know if you can tell or not, but there's a lot of metal particles in there. These were clean jugs when I cut them open, so they haven't had any other oil in them, and it has definitely got that metallic looking going on with it. I'll try dumping it out, and maybe the sun will catch it just right. This one's not as bad as the first dump, but there is a little bit in it. So I'll try it with this other one, one-handed here, see what kind of mess I can make, and see if you can tell. There's quite a bit of glimmer in there. And this 5-gallon bucket was empty. So that looks to me a heck of a lot more than 7 quarts. I only have about 10 quarts of gear oil, so hopefully I have enough. But yeah, it's definitely got some shine to it. I don't know after doing this whether I'd run them 400 hours between changes or not. I might think about maybe going half that, but I didn't expect to see that much metal in it. I know there was going to be some, but this seems a little much to me. So I'll get to filling that front end and see just how much it takes. Alright, so another quick update here. I started putting oil in. I use these Amsoil easy packs, so it's just squirted in, and when I had the cap open there was plenty of room, so I was thinking that it shouldn't be a problem with not being able to vent as the oil went in. Well, I got the first quart in, and the second one, it only took about half of it and just started spewing out the top here. So then I decided I'm going to pull those upper plugs. As soon as I did that, the oil level instantly dropped. So I'm guessing not only would they work for over servicing, but they help vent and get that oil moving even better than just with the top open. I put 7 quarts in there. I'm going to let it sit for a while. There's nothing coming out either side on those holes, so it's still cold out. It's even colder than it was this morning. The wind's picked up, so stuff's not flowing real well. So I'm just gonna let this sit for a couple hours. I'll check it again, see where it's at, and then maybe add some more. So my next step is going to be to crawl underneath here, and that big drain plug right there is what drains the hydrostat and the hydraulic system. Now it holds 12 quarts according to the book. Unfortunately, I can only get about a 2.5 gallon bucket under here, so this is going to be interesting. Probably going to make a heck of a mess, but my thought is to fill that one, push that one under, quickly dump that into another bucket, and then hopefully get back underneath here before that one's full, and do the shuffle till I get it all out. So I'll grab a wrench and see what kind of mess I can make. Okay, so just about ready to go here. That plug is metric, as is everything on this tractor. But unfortunately, my metric set is in a machine that isn't here. So luckily, with the bigger metric stuff, it correlates fairly close with standard. So 1.25 inches fits on there nicely. So that'll drain the main oil out, and then each brake will have an oil plug on it, and that plug right there is again metric, but on 1 inch fits on that really nice. So I'm going to drain this main one first, get the level down, and then I'll work on those left and right brakes. So hopefully I don't make a huge mess, but we'll find out here shortly. So that went about as well as expected. I did make a little bit of a mess. Wasn't horrible, but it's definitely more than I'd like to have spilled. So I got the main box drain in there. I pulled the plug on this right hand brake, and again, wasn't ready for it. That oil came shooting out of there like a rocket. So made a mess down there too, but it quickly died off. So I'm gonna let these two drain for a bit, then I'll move over and drain that left hand brake, and then we'll move up here and get the hydrostat filter, and then over here get the hydraulic filter pulled, and see where we're at gallon wise, and then start filling up and putting filters back on. So I wanted to show you the drain plug that came out of the transmission slash hydrostat main box. As you can maybe see in this, it does have a fair bit of fuzz on it, but there's nothing with serial numbers, so that's a good thing. No major chunks or anything, just a lot of fuzz, which is to be anticipated, especially since this is the first oil change, and it did go 400 hours. So I'll wipe this on the rag here and kind of see what it looks like. Again, just mainly fuzz. There's a few shavings in there. There's still some on it. So I'm hoping with this oil change it will help my hydrostat a bit. I've been having some issues lately. It seems to go into calibration mode quite a bit, so I'm thinking maybe some of these little filings might have got into some of the sensors or in one of the valves, and maybe cause an issue, but we'll see. But nothing horrible on there. I just wanted to show you that, and I'll get back to the rest here. Well, I got the plugs back in the back there on the brake drums and transmission. So the next thing I'll do is over here on the right side, I'll pull this filter off. This is your hydraulic filter, and this one has a magnet inside of it also, so I'll be checking that since I'll have time. With this, when you drain it and you're not draining the transmission at the same time, this free flows, so you got to be quick or you lose a lot of hydraulic fluid. So since I've already drained the main box, I'll have plenty of time to pull this filter off, check it out, check the magnet out, and put the new one back on. won't be in a rush. So I'll get this one pulled off and be right back. Okay, so I got that off, and those right there are magnets, and they're pretty strong ones, because when you go to take the filter off or put it on, they grab it and kind of make it a pain. I'm going to wipe that off, see kind of good stuff we find on that. Looks like there's a lot of crap, kind of like the magnet on the main case, but I'm guessing none of it is anything but fuzz. I don't really see any slivers or anything. Yeah, that looks actually pretty good. So yeah, that looks good to me. And as you can kind of tell, it's draining. Now you do these filters every 200 hours, so when you do it, you got to be quick, because it'll just drain everything right out of it. So I'll get that thrown on, and then we'll go over to the other side and take the hydrostat filter off. Alright, over here on the left side, just behind the fuel tank, you'll find the hydrostat filter right there. It's a kind of an odd spot to get to, but not terrible. And this one doesn't usually drain very much out, so when you're changing it at the 200 intervals, you're not going to lose a lot of transmission fluid. But I'll get this one pulled off, swapped out, and we'll go on to the next step. For an FYI here, this O-ring stuck to the housing. It did not come off with the filter. So keep an eye out for that. That way you don't double up and end up having a leak, having to take it all apart again. And as for filter numbers, which I have neglected to give you, is this hydrostat filter is a 7002299, and the hydraulic filter is a 7379332. And then later we'll get to the fuel filter, which is a 7380039. But for now, I've got all the plugs back in. The book did not spec out the torque on those plugs, so I just went with 25 foot-pounds, which seems to be kind of the ballpark area on those. So got that all buttoned up, filters on, so we're ready to move back here and take this plug out and start filling this with oil. And there's the dipstick, so we'll when we start getting close, we'll start monitoring that. And I ended up with probably 10.5 to 11 gallons that came out, which is pretty good. I got the majority of it. I did put the lift arms down so that those cylinders were compressed, and I think when the book calls out 12 gallons, it's not including the loader. That's completely separate, but I did collapse the cylinders on the loader to try and get as much oil out of those as possible. So at 10.5 or 11 gallons, I think we did pretty good at getting the majority out. So I'll start filling this up and see how much we stick in. Alrighty, got that all buttoned up. I put roughly 11.5 gallons in it. Their sight gauges on the side don't have marks, so I'm just kind of guessing at that. But I didn't take into account when I told you roughly 10.5 or 11 gallons how much I had spilled on the ground. So we probably are more in the range of 11 to 11.5 gallons that came out. I'll have to fire this up, run the hydraulics, drive it around a bit, get the fluid all moved and hopefully into all the right places, and then I'll check it again and see where we're at. And then I did come up front here while I was finishing that up and checked, and there's nothing on my dipstick, so it's had a couple hours here to drain. So it definitely holds more than the 7 quarts. I'll stick another quart in, see if it shows up on the stick. If not, I'll add another till I get it back on the stick again, and then I'll let it sit while I do the rest of the maintenance on this thing and see where we end up. Okay, so I added a couple more quarts to the front end. I'm going to let those kind of drain in there for a while before I check it again. And that pretty much is the 400 hour. Your front differential oil, engine oil and filter, hydrostat transmission oil and filters. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's taken me quite a few hours here to do that. So while I'm waiting for this front end, I'm going to move on to the 200 hour stuff, which is some of it's repeated. The transmission filter and hydrostat filter we've just replaced, so we don't need to do that. The fuel filter will be the next one. So I'll grab this fuel filter here and we'll get it swapped out. One of the things that's kind of a pain on it is this water separator. You disconnect it here electrically, and the book says to go ahead and spin this off, but what I've found is you can take the whole unit off as one, and then once you get it out from in here, take that water separator off. And that does save some of the mess. You're still going to make a bit of mess because the fuel is going to come out the top and run all over the place. But when you pull this off separate of it, it drains that. It makes a hell of a mess. So I leave that on, even though the book doesn't say to. So I'll get that pulled off and show you what happens next. So I got these apart. This is what you reuse, your water separator. I'll stick a rag down in there and kind of clean it out a bit. This is kind of a pain in the butt to get off. This O-ring is really tight in there, so it takes a lot of effort. And I'm sure they have a special tool that probably catches on these ears here, but I don't have one. So what I end up doing is using a pair of water pump pliers and put a rag over it to try and protect it a little bit, because you don't want to crack this. So I'll clean that out and I'll get it spun on the new one and we'll get it mounted back up. Well, I got that put back together. I forgot what a pain in the butt that is to put together. Another reason not to do it here on the tractor. When you got this out and you can work on a bench, but that O-ring is ridiculously tight, and I don't know whether it's just the wrong size or whether they're all that way, but you have to fiddle with it for quite a while before you can manage to get that thing in there without cross-threading it. Insane. So I'll put these back together here, and then I'll come up here, and this is your breather, so I'll take a stubby Phillips and open that up, and then I'll start priming it here, and once it starts coming out there, it's full, you'll just tighten that back down and you should be good to go. So I'll get that plugged together and start priming here and get this knocked out. Well, that is now full. I don't see any leaks anywhere, so I'm going to say that's good to go now. I did check the dipstick again. There's nothing on it, so I've stuck another quart in here. So that'll be 10 quarts as of right now. And I'll let that sit and kind of drain down. I'll move on to the next stuff. So the next stuff on the 200 hour part of this is to check the air filters. I did put an inner filter on this. It didn't come with one, so this one will have an inner and an outer. I'll pull those out. They're pretty simple. There's 3 of these clasps and then one on the back side there. Pull that off. I'll make sure they're clean, and if they're not, I'll probably try cleaning them out, and if that doesn't work, I'll replace them. And then once I do that, the rest is kind of inspections. You know, check your intake lines, make sure they're secure and no holes, and then check your fuel lines, make sure they're good. All your cooling lines, top and bottom radiator hoses, hydraulic hoses and such. So just a basic check over, and that'll pretty much wrap up the 200 hour part of this. Then I'll show you what the 100 hour takes. So I'll get these filters pulled out and be right back. Okay, so I pulled the air filter out, and it actually looked pretty good. It had just a little bit of dirt in it, not bad. The inner looked brand new, which it should, and I looked at the hour stamp that was written on that filter, and that was the original filter. So I decided to go ahead and replace it, because 400 hours is long enough. Filters aren't terribly expensive, but they protect you, so I just replaced it. And outer air filter is a 66375. So I got that, inspected everything that I needed to. Everything looked fine. One thing I did forget was on the 200 hour, you need to check your toe in. So the way I do it is I look at this casting seam that's on the tires. I line it up on that side, and then take a reading down here, which looks like it's right on 55 inches. And then I'll compare that to the back measurement, and the book says it needs to be within 0.08 to 0.31 of an inch. So basically almost nothing to 1/3 of an inch. Last time I did this at the last 200 hour, it was within those specs, so I never adjusted anything. But if I were, I'd have to come up here, break these jam nuts loose, and turn the ball joint just a little bit to either take it out or pull it in. But I'll take a shot on the back here and see if we got to do anything. Be right back. Okay, so on the 100 hour, it's just inspecting your battery and the cables, your alternator and fan belt. Just make sure that they're within adjustment. Check your fuel lines, which we did in the 200 hour, and then checking your parking brake and pedal free play. So what that is you come inside here, and that's the free play in your pedal. So basically till you feel it start to get tight, you need to measure that. Now to be within spec, you need to be 0.8 or 1.2 inches within that range. So I'll grab the tape and I'll see what this is. Alright, so hopefully that camera will show this. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this pedal down till I feel resistance, and I'm going to measure the difference between the pedals. And that looks like it's just under 1 inch. I'll do the same on the other one. And again, just about 1 inch on that one. So if they were out of adjustment, what you would do is you come over here and break one of these jam nuts loose and give this a twist, either depending on which way you need to go, in or out. And then the same thing over here on the other side, just depending on which pedal needs to be adjusted. These are very sensitive, so it doesn't take much, and as I showed you, these are well within specs, so I won't be adjusting those today. So with that, that pretty much wraps up the 100 hour. So the next thing is the 50 hour, which is to grease the machine. And there's several grease points on this. The bucket and loader have 8 per side. Your front differential has one on the front here. It's on the other side there. And then one on the back here somewhere. And the other side would probably be a better look for you. And then around on the back, you've got your lift arms, your draft control, and some linkages. And that's pretty much all the greasing that this thing needs. Occasional one here. I don't really move the lift arm, so that one probably won't take any. But yeah, that's pretty simple. And of course, I try to grease a little more often than every 50 hours, but that's what the book says. So the only other thing is to check your wheel bolt nut torques. So on these front wheels, these torque to 130 foot-pounds, give or take 7 foot-pounds. And then the rear ones here, they torque to 220 foot-pounds, give or take 15 foot-pounds. So I'll give those a check, and as you can tell, it still has the torque stripe from the factory. They haven't moved. I know some people have commented that their lug nuts have come loose, but mine haven't. I'll check the torque again anyway. And that pretty much wraps up the 50 hour. And then other than that, you've got your 10 hour items, which are just basic fluid checks, tire pressure checks, you know, just basic overall checking out the whole machine, which most people just do the basics, fluid levels. But that pretty much wraps up the 400 hour. So I'll get greasing and check the torques, and then kind of go over everything here and call it a day. This has been a long one and an expensive one. Gone through a lot of fluids, and it's taken quite a while to get this taken care of. Before I forget, one thing I did want to show you is that I do use the Bobcat transmission differential fluid in the hydraulic system, and the reason I do that is because I had a lot of transmission problems with my first 5555, and now I'm starting to have them with this one, and I don't want any reason for them to deny a warranty claim. So I'm just going to run the Bobcat stuff and keep my fingers crossed that I don't have too many problems down the road. So let me get to checking the torques, and I'll wrap this thing up here in a minute. Alrighty, well, that about wraps this up. I got the wheel torques checked. Those are a 24 millimeter to check those, and then I had one of my guys drop off the tool set that I've needed all day. It was in his truck, so I was able to get underneath and verify the size for the wet brake drains and the transmission itself, the main box. So the brake drains are 24 millimeter, and the transmission main case drain is a 30 millimeter. So I also did a little math while I was waiting for him to bring the tools to me, and I added it up, and fluid and filters of what I did today totaled up to about $770. So it's a fair chunk of change to do the 400 hour. Of course, I did the labor myself, so if you were to take it into a shop, you're probably double that. But if for some reason your shop's running a special and they are in the ballpark of 770, I'd definitely have them do it, because this ended up taking me the entire day. I didn't break for lunch or anything, so I thought it'd go a little quicker than it did. This front end is what really slowed me down, the draining of it and the filling. I just checked it again, and it's in the satisfactory range on the stick. It's not completely full, and that was 10 quarts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fire this thing up, run it around a bit, let it sit overnight. I'll come back, I'll check the front end, and I'll check the hydraulics tomorrow and see where they're at, and maybe top them off if need be. And then in case you thought I went through the 10-hour stuff too quick, I'll go over that real quick. You need to check your engine oil, your hydraulic levels, your wheel torques, the tire pressure, check your coolant level, the intake system, make sure the hoses and clamps are good, check your PTO shaft splines, make sure they're not damaged, 3-point linkages, make sure they're in good shape, make sure your parking brake works, make sure your seat belt works, make sure the horn works, the safety interlock for the brake and the transmission levers, if they're in gear and the brakes aren't set, it will kill the tractor. You can check those individually, make sure your lights are working, if you have any safety signs or decals, make sure they're there, make sure your pedals are clean and unobstructed, make sure your loader mounting is good, and your front differential fluid. And that's something that, I mean, every day I check a good portion of this. You know, I'll check all my fluids every day, and then I just glance over everything else. I know a lot of people just kind of skip over that stuff, but it's good to know anyway. So with that being said, it's been a long day, but she should be good for another 200 hours at least. And then I did sample the engine, and I did sample the transmission fluid, so I'll get those sent off, and then I'll get back with you on those results. It'll be a couple weeks, and we'll see how that turns out. But if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.